Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating, deeply chilling story that explores the absolute darkest corners of scientific hubris. We're talking pure psychological horror. We're looking at Samir, right? He's this brilliant surgeon who decided that curing the living just wasn't enough. He actually wanted to play God with the dead. Okay, let's dive into this because what starts off as a twisted medical experiment rapidly spirals into a surreal, terrifying descent into a dimension we interact with literally every single day without a second thought. So I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture yourself standing in your bathroom, late at night. You look up, making eye contact with your own reflection. But then, you raise your right hand, and the person in the mirror doesn't. They just stand there, staring right back at you with this completely independent, sinister mind of their own. It's a primal fear, isn't it? This creepy idea that the glass isn't a reflection at all, but a window into some shadow world. Keep that terrifying thought right in the front of your mind, because this is exactly the nightmare our protagonist, Samir, stumbles into. To truly understand the sheer gravity of Samir's mistakes, we actually need to look at his ultimate fate first, jumping right in medias res. Imagine this. Your consciousness is perfectly intact, but your physical body is entirely transformed into rigid silver glass. You're mounted on a wall in pitch darkness. You feel agonizing physical pain, but when you try to scream, only fine shards of glass fall out of your mouth. You cry, but your tears are thick, black blood. Yeah, this is where Samir's story ends. So let's rewind a bit and systematically break down exactly how this horrific disaster even unfolded. The crucial point here is understanding who Samir was before all this madness took over. By day, the guy was a highly respected, famous surgeon. But the extreme stress of his profession totally warped his mind. To cope, he developed this gruesome midnight habit. He'd roam desolate streets, collecting stray animals, and eventually moving up to unclaimed human corpses from the hospital morgue. And he justified this whole shebang by claiming he was advancing science. There's this incredibly tense moment in the source material where a terrified morgue watchman questions him. Samir, with these completely bloodshot, sleep-deprived red eyes, just stares at the poor guy and whispers that resurrection is possible. He literally says, "Look at me, I died and came back to life." I mean, that level of delusion is our starting point. Let's look at his methodology, because this is where things get truly unnatural. He takes an unclaimed corpse, specifically one with no physical trauma, which is perfect for his needs, and initiates his resurrection protocol. It's this twisted three-step process. First, he seals the body inside a specialized glass chamber and then introduces a highly volatile mix of chemicals. The visual here is just striking. The chamber completely fills with this dense, blinding white smoke. But then, as the chemical reaction forces an unnatural life back into the dead cells, that bright white smoke violently churns and transforms into a thick, suffocating black smoke. This visual shift is wild. It perfectly mirrors the corruption of natural law that's taking place. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific unpredictability of his work. The black smoke clears out, the corpse's eyes snap open, Samir is ecstatic, he thinks he's achieved an absolute medical miracle, but the victory is super hollow. The body is effectively just a shell. It doesn't move, it doesn't respond at all. Enraged by this failure, a manic Samir literally throws the dead body out of his laboratory into the night, shouting that it's useless to him. But get this, moments later, Samir looks up. The corpse isn't lying on the ground anymore. It is standing upright, directly outside the lab window, staring in at him with this incredibly chilling, mysterious smile. It's our first real sign that Samir isn't creating life. He's inviting something else in entirely. That haunting smile basically shatters whatever sanity Samir had left. He abandons his experiments on corpses completely. Instead, his megalomania shifts focus. He figures, hey, if I can't resurrect the dead, I'll clone the living, specifically myself, using my own reflection. His rapid psychological decline unfolds over just a matter of days. On day one, he's just staring endlessly into a mirror, totally convinced there's a parallel universe right behind the glass. By day 3, the absolute impossible happens. His reflection stops mirroring him. It just stands completely still, staring back, with its hands entirely coated in blood. And by day 7, the barrier between worlds starts thinning out, and these mysterious roaming shadows just start flooding Samir's laboratory. Now, the psychological warfare this mirror entity wages is truly sadistic. The imposter in the glass doesn't just stand there, it actively torments the real Samir. It mocks him. It forces Samir to watch as the reflection violently slits its own throat right there in the glass. It mimics burning photographs of Samir's loved ones, brutally reminding him of his utter isolation. The reflection taunts him, laughing and saying, "You will be alone even in a crowd." It's this incredibly calculated, systematic dismantling of Samir's mental state, driving him straight towards a point of absolute reckless desperation.
Driven absolutely to the brink, Samir decides he just has to terminate the experiment. He grabs a heavy hammer, stands right before this terrifying entity wearing his face, and swings with every ounce of strength he has. The glass shatters into 1,000 pieces. Samir drops the hammer, breathes a massive sigh of relief, and mutters, "Goodbye forever. I brought you here, and I have ended you." For a brief, fleeting second, he really believes he's won. He thinks he's reestablished control over his reality. But man, the consequences of breaking that glass are immediate, and they are brutal. Samir suddenly feels this warm wetness on his abdomen. He looks down to see a massive, gaping wound, the exact same wound his reflection had previously inflicted upon itself when it was taunting him. Then, the shattered pieces of the mirror on the floor just vanish, and the frame morphs into a solid, transparent glass wall, dividing the room in half. Samir collapses to the floor in absolute agony. He starts coughing up that same thick, black blood we saw earlier in the chemical smoke, and his pupils roll back, turning a blind, pure white. As Samir is writhing in pain on the floor, this pristine figure steps right up to the other side of the transparent wall. It's the mirror clone, dressed in a spotless white surgeon's coat, totally unharmed. The clone looks down at the real Samir and delivers this truly devastating realization. He says, "You thought you would destroy me, but you set me free." The hammer didn't destroy the entity at all. It shattered the barrier, keeping the entity trapped. The roles have just been completely and irreversibly reversed. In this final, desperate burst of adrenaline, the real, bleeding Samir punches the glass wall. But all it does is embed shards of glass deep into his own face. He falls backward into the darkness on his side of the barrier. Then, these red emergency lights in this mirror dimension flicker on, revealing just a chaotic nightmare. The room is packed with these grotesque, fleshy masses, the remnants of all his previous failed corpse experiments. In one corner, he even sees the horrific sight of a woman just calmly burning her own fingers as if they were wax candles. This is the hellish reality of the shadows he was so desperate to manipulate. And then, you guys, the true physical horror of the curse kicks in. The fake Samir on the outside locks the heavy iron door of the lab. Trapped in the dark, the real Samir feels something crawling beneath his skin, triggering this terrifying biological mutation. His bones crack loudly, literally echoing in the dark, as his fingers painfully elongate into these sharp nails. The sensation leaves his body as his skin rapidly hardens, turning into a shiny, rigid silver layer. He loses his facial features entirely. He tries to scream for help, but his mouth just drops fine glass shards. His cellular structure is literally rewriting itself. He is becoming the mirror. Which brings us to the ultimate tragic irony of our explainer today. The fatal flaw in his experiment is finally revealed. The reflection never actually wanted to be human, it just wanted to enter our world. So now, the fake Samir is completely free in the real world, wearing a clean white coat, perfectly poised to replace the famous surgeon and bring an entire empire of shadows right across the barrier. Meanwhile, the real Samir is reduced to a flat, living, human-sized mirror just mounted on a dark wall. He is immortal, he is awake, and he is trapped. But wait, the source material gives us one final, incredibly twisted mechanic to this curse. The fake Samir walks right up to the newly formed mirror that is the real Samir. To prove his absolute dominance, the fake Samir takes a surgical blade and deliberately slices his own wrist. But the fake Samir doesn't bleed. He feels nothing. Instead, the agonizing pain is felt entirely by the mirror on the wall, and real dark blood pours out from the silver glass surface. The fake Samir just smiles, basically noting that if the mirror ever tries to escape or fight back, it will only endlessly torture itself. So the real Samir is just left behind in absolute darkness. He can't die, he can't live, he's forever glued to the wall of a forgotten cell, weeping literal tears of blood over the horrors he unleashed. And the tragedy is so perfectly encapsulated in this thought, mirrors show the truth, they don't tell it. He has to watch this imposter walk away, perfectly assuming his identity, knowing the horrific truth but entirely robbed of his voice to warn the rest of the world. It's a seriously chilling reminder of the unknown forces we carelessly toy with. Samir thought he was a god mastering life and death, but he was really just a pawn opening a door that absolutely should have remained shut. Which leaves us with a rather unsettling thought to end our explainer today. Armed with everything we've just uncovered, the next time you wash your hands, look up, and lock eyes with your reflection in the mirror, ask yourself, who is really on the outside and who is really in control? Thanks for exploring this dark anatomy with me. Keep questioning the reality right in front of you.